This is Tim Mackesy from Atlanta, Georgia. And this is a re-recording of something I messed up last weekend, but it's going to be a better recording, better quality. And the conversation about a month ago, I met a young man named Michael who was referred to me by his girlfriend, who's a speech pathologist. So please introduce yourselves.
Hello, world. I'm Michael.
And I'm Mallery.
Yay. So you guys knew each other for like 5 years or something, and then you've been dating for how long?
8 months now.
Okay. And when Mallery met you, she had no idea you stuttered.
No, yeah, she had no clue. And I was hiding it with everything I had until she told me she was a speech pathologist. And then I used it to kind of woo her. I was like, oh, you're a speech pathologist? I have a stutter. And she
Man,
didn't
I
believe
should
me.
have thought of that.
Yeah, no, I did not believe him when he told me. I thought, he's confused. He doesn't know.
Because I had a really big stutter, and um, maybe coulda, woulda, I don't know. But
Yeah, I was like, you can help me out sometimes, and it's practice.
I'm curious how much did you have to nudge Michael to come in here to meet me? Was it one and done, or did it take a little
Um,
while?
Gosh, I don't really feel like I had to twist his arm too much. Honestly, I think he was just ready to start working on it.
Mhm.
I feel like there was just like one specific day I can remember he called me and he was just in an awful mood. And I was like, what is going on? And he was like,
Mm.
work was bad. He kept
Yeah.
going on and on. And then he finally just said, like, what had happened is he had stuttered a lot on the job site that had made him frustrated. And I think he just went in this cycle of feeling kind of
Mhm.
down about it. And another SLP that I work with had heard about you, and she gave me your name, and I, kind of passed it along to Michael, and it was not less than a week, and he had scheduled an eval with
Cool.
you. Yeah, I think he was just kind of ready.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was over like the past 5 years. I've really been stuttering a lot, and that one day, I just stuttered a whole bunch, and I was really angry actually, and I called Mallory, and she was like, "Just get a speech," and here we are.
Sometimes it takes that tipping point, like the interview that where I stutter severely during the interview, or there's a tipping point. Um, so Michael, tell us what you do for work and how much you have to talk for work.
Yes, so I'm in the construction industry. I pour concrete, and I'm a project manager. So I'm always talking to different superintendents, calling people, ordering materials that we need, ordering concrete. So I'm on the phone all day long. So, and for the past 2 years, that's where I've been working. So I've been battling through just calling people and stuttering and having to change my words. And uh, yeah, it's just really been a battle. And even I had to go into these meetings with people that are way older than me, and because I'm pretty young in the industry,
Mhm.
and I had to stand up and speak in front of them at a round table and tell them our plans. And you got to be precise, and because it's a job site, and they want to say,
Yeah.
what date are you going to work? When are you going to do this? And you can't run around it. You have to be direct. And
Right.
sometimes I have some big stutters.
Right. And then we learned you had some very specific triggers. Your name,
Mm-hmm.
pronoun I, which we use all day long. They say we say 20,000 words a day. Well, how we're going to say I 100. If we're kids, we're going to say like 1,000, right? I want it. And then the WH questions, because you have trouble with W. Your last name begins with a W. What, why, where, when, we, would, will. There's like 8 kingpin W's. And then some of your subdivisions and job sites had W. So you were overwhelmed by W. You anticipated it, and then you would call and you would block and put the fillers in, that kind of thing.
Oh no, I mean 100%. And there were times where I would call the concrete plant. I try to say, "Hey, this is Michael Wilkes," and I would stutter so bad, I would say one of our guys' names. I'd be like, hey, this is Zach. I'm from JD Concrete.
Oh,
And then they'd be
wow.
like, that doesn't sound like Zach, but because
Ah,
they know who it was, but
just to get it out. But right, and that was when you were very impulsive, but you didn't have any strategies, you didn't have any tools. So
right.
we'll get in that later. One of the things that I really, when I met you, you told me that your diet's super specific, you're in training, and then you ran a 50 miler. Please tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was well, pretty much it was just to get disciplined. And it was a 50-mile race all through the canyons of Arizona. And it was really the most challenging thing I've ever done in my life. And
Mm,
it, yeah, for me, it was just building confidence over,
yeah, yeah.
over
Well,
stuttering.
it helps when a person who stutters has something to map over to stuttering. And
Mhm.
I picked up very quickly that you were very disciplined and organized, goal oriented, and willing to run for 12 hours and 20 minutes through the desert.
Yes. And I mean, I have a big story on that. I can say it now or later on in the episode, but yeah, I mean, it taught me
Yeah.
a lot about stuttering.
Okay, cool. Cool. We'll definitely hear that. Um, so there was a time period when you would ask her to speak for you. Would you guys kind of share? Because I know as an SLP,
Mhm.
you you have a calling to help, right?
Right.
And it's a predicament because your boyfriend is blocking on stuttering and avoiding and asking you to help him, talk
Mhm.
for him. So would you share about that, you guys?
Sure. Yeah, I'll go. Oh gosh. Well, I think, going from not knowing that Michael stuttered to actually seeing and hearing him stutter for the first time. We were together at the Chick-fil-A drive-through, and it was a big stutter. He was blocking, he was groping, and he completely changed his order. I didn't know what he wanted at the time, or I would have just, jumped in there and done it. So,
Mhm.
I just remember seeing his face and him pulling over and just looking defeated and thinking like, oh gosh, like I don't want to see him, look that way ever again. It's hard when you
Mm,
care about somebody. So, from the girlfriend side of it, I don't ever want him to feel less than, because I
mm,
love him. But then the SLP side of me thinks, okay, well, we
mhm.
need to start working on some things, and we can practice and we'll do
Yeah,
some strategies. But it was just a hard line to kind of toe. I didn't want to mom him or nag him,
yeah.
because no man would like that. But I wanted to help, so that's why I felt
Mhm.
like he needed to get some therapy from a third party,
Mm,
not me.
yeah. You know, in graduate school, most SLPs learn very little about stuttering.
Hmm.
And stuttering is a unique animal. I've talked to people who are in voice disorders and stuttering, and those are the two things that can actually progress and become more severe.
Hmm.
So if you don't do vocal rest as prescribed by your ENT, you may have vocal cord polyps that have to be removed by an ENT. Stuttering, as we know, can progress and become more severe. And then there's that fight or flight response where I start getting teased and bullied and embarrassed, I start avoiding. There's psychology and speech pathology have to coordinate and integrate because stuttering is a social anxiety.
Right.
People develop layers and layers of avoidance tricks. And when we met Michael, we made an inventory. We made a list of all the things that you were doing designed to try to not stutter. And
Mhm.
there was a list of about 10 different things, and that was a month ago.
Okay.
Um, one of them was to look away. You would look away and down and hold stutters for like at least 30 seconds. What have you learned about staying up and associated with your listener?
Yeah, the biggest thing I learned about that is just is if you or if you keep eye contact, then you're staying present and you can focus on the stutter instead of necessarily what the other person is thinking or projecting your thoughts on them. So, and whenever I avert or like look away, I was getting so caught up in the fact that I was stuttering and like, oh, why am I doing this? Instead of
Yeah.
thinking about how can I fix it.
Right. Right. I looked away from people till I was at least 25 during stutters. And eye aversion is a significant symptom for those of you who treat stuttering out there. During eye aversion, it's driven by I don't want to see the reaction of my listener. So I'm projecting thoughts. What kind of facial expression are they making while I'm stuttering? So as I'm looking away from my listener, I'm dissociated and I'm projecting my thoughts. So my malware is loaded every time I do it. I'm also going to have a longer stutter on a stopwatch because I'm dissociated. It's almost like a trance. So when we look down, we're like, it can be 30 seconds or more. And then it's like we come back to earth. So you're doing a great job with that. And
Thank you.
yeah. So as we mentioned, just the word I, we have to use all the time.
Yeah, and that was definitely one of my biggest stutters is
Yeah.
I'll hold the
Yeah.
I for so
Right.
long.
Yeah, and he
So
would fight through it too. Like I could tell he instead of stopping or kind of exhaling, he would get mad and just had that mentality of, oh, I'm gonna just
Yeah.
fight through this one.
right. And it could have been 6 I's, 10 Ahs, then another 5 I's and another 10 Ahs. So it's not solution oriented. It's not like we'd prefer like I want, where it's just the I. But
Mhm.
when you're looking away and putting in the fillers, it gets messy in a hurry. So what have you learned about W? Ooh,
Oh yeah, so that's another big one is whenever I would go ask a question like what or why is I would always stutter super long on it. And I realized is to take the tension out of my throat or like off my lips and just kind of flow into it and just go what or
right,
why and just to slow
exactly.
down my speech because I would try to power through it and take a deep breath and go
Yeah,
and I would never get it out.
yeah,
So slowing down, speaking on my exhale, and just what.
exactly. Yeah, if you inhale before or during a stutter, it's worse. It's fuel. So
Mhm.
specifically, you're learning to begin down in your larynx with ooh, like there's 2 O's before the W.
Mhm.
When Wilkes, your last name. And I'm from Wisconsin. When I moved to Atlanta, that word was like a cobra, like my fear of stuttering on that word. And it was, ooh, 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 ooh. So I'm intimate about W. As well, I learned that I never really said a W without several so's. So, so, so what kind of car do you have? I noticed I never said a W without a string of so's.
Well,
And
and to me with the W, it's like in everyday conversations, whenever I'm talking to somebody and they're asking me a bunch of questions, what do you do? Like, what's your name? Blah, blah, blah. And then for me, I want to ask them the same questions back, but I'm afraid I'm going to stutter. So
mhm,
instead, they just ask me a bunch of questions and then I walk away. And it's awkward. Like they don't, like, it seems like I don't care about them, but I do. I was just afraid to talk to them. And I mean, that was
mhm.
a huge issue I've had.
Well, this is an example of where CBT and SLP come together because there's a fear of W. There's a fear and embarrassment about saying my name. And anticipation is you just said you might avoid being polite and cordial and ask someone questions because you're afraid to stutter on this thing called W. So that's the cognitive part. So you reframe your thoughts about stuttering, take the meaning away, and then you learn speech technique. So you change your thoughts and feelings about it, and then you have a new mechanical pathway. Those together are why you're already doing better with W after just a month.
And that's a big thing to talk about, because I feel like whenever you accept, there's a good one.
That was a good pullout.
Yes.
Whenever you.
Whenever I accepted it, then I didn't have to focus on my thoughts anymore, and I could just focus on speaking.
Interesting.
And that's really where everything's sped up for me.
Did you say once you accepted it?
Yes.
Accepted that you stuttered?
Yes.
So it's okay now.
Accepted that, and accepted how I thought other people felt about it. Because like I heard a quote: "It's people aren't thinking about you; they're thinking about what you think about them." And then I was just like, once I thought about that, it just didn't matter. So I could just start focusing on slowing down and pronouncing my words properly and with our techniques.
Yeah. So you accepted your person who stuttered. You're disclosing more than you ever did. You're talking about it with Mallery, friends and family, that you've started to do some things to work on your speech. You're doing a lot of phone calls that you don't have to make, but you're doing them for self-therapy, I call it. It's the same things I used to do. One of my most cray-cray things, when I moved to Atlanta and I had no job, and when I said my last name on the phone, my blocks were silent and people would hang up. This is pre-internet. And I would call gas stations and ask for myself. Is Tim Mackesy there? No, who's that? 25 a night minimum. Remember, necessity is the mother of invention. So when you got no money and no job, I was calling those gas stations. I had my big phone book back in the day. It was like 4 inches thick with the rabbit-eared, the pages are folded over. I'd open it. I had like a Sharpie, and I'd run down all the Texacos or the BPs, probably calling the same ones every 3 nights or something. Right.
And that's the thing I've learned. Even this morning with you, I made a call, and just making those calls with you, and then bringing it to the real world. I don't know. It's allows me to be intentional whenever I call people.
Intentional. I like that.
And whenever I'm making the phone calls for work, I'm thinking, okay, this is practice. This isn't just me making a phone call.
Yeah.
I'm practicing, and it's the muscle memory, just building it over and over.
Yeah, and I'm teaching you to suppress the urge to just jump in impulsively into the call when you're filled with anxiety. Unless there's flames and you're dialing 911, pay yourself first. Spend 30 seconds. What am I thinking about? Oh, I've stuttered with that person before. And, well, as soon as I call them, I'll stutter and they go, oh, there's Tim again, Tim with the stutter. So I'm projecting my thoughts. So you're learning how to figure out what you're thinking that's creating the anxiety, reducing the anxiety, and then executing the call, and also using phrasing. Way cool. So then your company name begins with J, and we were doing glides.
Yes. J.
How do you turn a J into a glide?
So you start from the throat and then push your tongue on the top of your mouth. Is J.
You're close. Well, it's just your tongue.
Yeah.
It's almost like yeah, right?
Well, and it's crazy because that small little tip this morning, whenever you told me that, it was just J.
Yeah.
J.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
I feel like whenever I was thinking about J, I was getting stuck in this bit. But all you have to do is glide the tongue forward.
Right.
And it releases it.
TD, KGJ are all plosives on the tongue, ja, but you turn them into a glide, right? So you had a thought about stuttering on the name of your company. That's what's going on in the mind. I don't want to stutter on the name, right? And that creates the anxiety, which was the foundation for it. That's what's underneath the right?
And that's what I would do. I would take the deep breath, thinking I was relieving the anxiety, but it was really just fueling the stutter even more. And then so now, what you were saying before I make the call, I just think how I'm feeling, release the tension, and then think about the glide, and then it just feels smooth.
Mallory, what's it like to watch him using all of these techniques that are both in his mind, how to change his thoughts plus his speech? Is that fun?
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's made me so happy just because I feel like he just seems, just a little bit lighter now. I feel like he had kept all of that in, and, he didn't want to seem kind of, less than because he stuttered. And now that it's out and he's working on it, I just feel like a little part of him is free now. He's not worrying about as much what people are thinking.
I love that. Free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like you mentioned, he's very goal oriented.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I knew when he started working with you that it was going to be something he was going to succeed in, because he pushes.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if he's being coached and he's respectful of the person and respecting the person like you, because now he enjoys his time with you, then I knew it was going to have some good results. So
Yes.
Cool. I have an expression: acceptance is the toll booth to evolution. Like, you have to accept you stutter. Sometimes I stutter. I'm a person who stutters, to be able to evolve. But remember your inventory the first day, like a dozen things designed to conceal the stutter. So I accept I stutter, I start talking about it, I disclose it, I do fake stuttering, and all of a sudden it's like a rapid, if there was healthy weight loss that's rapid, there's like you're in this in a rapid diet of taking weight off of stuttering, if that makes sense, because you're changing what you're thinking and feeling and talking all together at once. So there's an old expression: you can drain a bathtub faster than it took to fill it. In the last 12 months, I've helped a 52-year-old, a 48-year-old, even a 73-year-old change in 6 months. So these are like old stuttering habits that go back to early childhood. A lot of it's same old, same old. Once the frame is set, like if I stutter, people think I'm awkward. If I stutter, people question how smart I am. Once that frame is set, those are toxic beliefs. It's like one of those old VHS tapes that just plays and then spins and restarts, for those of you as old as I am.
Yeah, I think that was a big thing with me too, because like I remember the first time I stuttered was my sophomore year of college, and on that day I punctuated it, is what we determined. I was like, oh man, I stuttered. And then every time I stuttered after that, I was just filling the tub. Cause I'd be like, oh man, I stuttered. Like, that's so bad. And then, I mean, that's been 5 years now. I've been just filling, it's been overflowing.
Right.
And then as soon as you said this, it's like, stop thinking about it. And we've been like, the mentality was my biggest foundation. So we just pulled the plug. And I mean,
right. I'm curious, as if we asked your mom, if when you were a kid, you went through some pockets of mild stuttering.
She said
I'm
I
just
did,
curious.
but it wasn't, she said it wasn't bad. It was just, I'd have a few small stutters.
I figured as much, because anyone listening would go, wait a minute. This dude says he started stuttering 5 years ago as a young adult with no traumatic brain injury, no stroke, right? So I figure you probably had some bouts of mild stuttering, but then what happened, was it in college?
Yes.
Yeah. So you had a stuttering event that was traumatic to you, like post-traumatic stress disorder. You punctuate it, remember, punctuate it, personalize it, becomes pervasive. And then you immediately started developing all these habits, trying not to stutter because the phenomenon was unpleasant for you. Now, this isn't a surprise, because I've worked with countless people who have begun to stutter as a result of a car accident, head trauma. And their loved ones come to visit them and they're stuttering because of what's called a neurogenic stutter. Well, if I have no history of stuttering, let's pretend I'm 25 years old, 30, 40, 50, and all of a sudden I have an acute, significant stutter. My loved ones come to see me and they're overwhelmed with maybe grief. They might cry as they see me talking, and then I go out into public to fill my prescription or to try to go out to eat for the first time. And the world reacts to my stuttering, and I can quickly develop the thoughts and feelings as though I've been a stutterer for decades. I've seen it where people quickly develop these negative thoughts and feelings. It can happen. Um, I remember, I mean, for years I had people that their eyes would get big when I stuttered or would grin. I had teasing and bullying all through childhood, but um,
I feel like though his speech was so important to him, and this is, pre me, so before I knew him. But he's, for those who know him, he can kind of talk his way out of things. He's, he's
what has he
yeah,
talked his way out of with
yeah,
you?
well, we won't go there.
This is the
No.
personal part of the podcast.
No, but he's funny.
Dun, dun,
He's
dun.
likable. He's got a good sense of humor. So I think in his friend group, he was, one of those guys who maybe they get in trouble and he can kind of talk his way out. Oh, we didn't mean it like that.
Oh.
Oh, come on, let's just go do this instead. So I think when he did, like you guys said, he punctuated that moment of disfluency, and he kind of lost that part of himself, or he felt that he did, lost being able to talk smoothly. His ego kind of took a hit because
it's a good point. 'Cause that was pretty much like in my head, my entire identity was just, like I wanted to go into sales when I was in college. And that was like my thing. Like I was just good. I thought I was good at just speaking and getting my thoughts across. But whenever I started stuttering, I thought I had to change my words and I couldn't say what I wanted to do. And it just kind of flipped my world upside down.
Yep. Yep. It can happen. Can happen pretty quickly for people when they attach a lot to the stuttering. If you go back to a kid who's in 3rd or 4th grade, this is the first time they start getting teased and bullied and self-conscious. That whole child can change in a hurry, start to avoid. So Michael, you've really begun to dive into podcasts about stuttering, and you're mentioning one of them that was very special to you was Sean Kahn.
Yes.
Do you remember his story?
Yes, he's the one that spoke at the MLK. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was listening to his podcast, and the biggest thing that spoke to me, I guess, was just his kind of his openness with it, and just being able to go on stage and speak in front of large crowds, and he just completely stopped projecting his thoughts onto others.
Yeah.
And he stopped personalizing it. He was like, "So what? I stutter. I'm going to go up here and I'm doing this for me," and it was inspiring.
I love it. Yeah, that was in front of about 1,200 people, and he's in his podcast with me. He shares the story of being teased and bullied in high school and cyberbullied, but he stepped up to speak at MLK weekend in Atlanta, maybe 5 years ago, and just nailed it. That was a big breakthrough moment. Then he went off to college and now he's working in finance, I believe. So great story. Mallery, what would you like speech pathologists to know, to help people who stutter?
I just feel like for me, I know I've already learned through Michael. I feel like some things, just focusing more on, your thoughts and behind when you're stuttering, how are you feeling? Taking a moment to kind of connect and be present in the moment. I work in the school system right now, so I'm working with kids. I have a caseload of about, I think I'm at 47 right now, and I don't have any fluency kids on my caseload. So whenever I do get a fluency kid, it's kind of one of those things where I'm like, oh gosh, need to go brush up on my skills really quick and learn some strategies to kind of throw at these kids. It's not something that I'm super confident in, but I love that there's more of an influence on building confidence and kind of tapping into what you're feeling in that moment when you are stuttering. I wish I could go back now and kind of do some things differently with some kiddos that I've had.
Sure.
I never wanted to bring too much attention to the stutter because I didn't want to kill their confidence. So I feel like it's such a hard line to walk, kind of. I didn't want to make them self-conscious, but I look back now and think, man, like I could have done more.
I mean, in knowing you all for about a month, it seems like your whole relationship is changing around and through the stuttering, because he was asking you to communicate for him, and now it's like totally different. He's working really hard. He's disciplined. He's got a skill set, and you're able to witness what he's doing, which has been fun for us both.
Yeah, I mean, before when we would go out like to eat or something, he would ask me, hey, we go put our name in, and then he would like walk outside and be on a phone call, and I'm like, well,
fake phone call.
Yeah, could he not have talked to that person after dinner? Or I'm just being kind of naive or just not thinking like, hey, he didn't want to have to go up and stutter when he said Wilkes or Michael. It took me a little bit to realize, because he wouldn't always stutter around me. I felt like once we got really comfortable with one another, I don't know, he just was never really disfluent around me. It was more so when there's a lot of ambient noise or he's ordering on a phone call when he can't see someone's face.
Right.
So
Michael, didn't you say that you would type your name and the table of 4, whatever, on your phone and hold it up to the hostess?
Yes, I would put it in my notes. I put, Wilkes, table of 4, or whatever it may be. If I was going to Subway, I would put my order in my phone, and then I would just pretend like it was too loud or whatever. And I just give them the phone, and they'd look at me funny, but I mean, it worked. So but thankfully, I don't have to do that anymore. So
I used to point to the menu, and then the server would squint, and they would say what I was pointing at, and I would smile, and they were like, "Oh, do you want that?" And I'm like, "Uh-huh." I thought that was really slick. But
yeah, I've done the same thing, and that's brings up another point. It's like just day-to-day life, like going to a restaurant, sitting on the corner, and people will be like, "I want the corner." I'm like, no, I'm sitting here. And the reason why is because I didn't want to talk over them, and I could point to the menu and be like, "Yeah." And another thing is, if someone was ordering it, someone was ordering a drink, and Mallory gets, I don't know, what do you get? Some kind of wine, and then they'd come to me, "What do you want to drink?" I'm like, "Whatever she got." And I wouldn't even know what it was. I didn't want it.
Wouldn't like it.
And that's kind of spooky there, man.
Yeah, but I couldn't say what I wanted. So I mean, I thought I couldn't.
And I didn't want to jump in and be like, "Oh no, he'll have the," I didn't want to make him feel like less of a man. But
well, that one I've heard multiple times from adults wanting to sit at the corner, because like if you're at the corner, the server might come and you can kind of speak just to the server. But yet if you have to speak over the table for everyone to hear, these are things, if you don't stutter, this doesn't cross your mind.
Oh no.
But if you stutter, you'll have these criteria, such as speaking over other people at the table to communicate with the waiter. You freak out, or ambient noise, or I walk up to the counter to speak to somebody, and all of a sudden the manager comes up behind and starts communicating with the employee, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, now there's 2 listeners. There's 2 instead of 1. At Starbucks, being surprised when the barista asks for your name, when you didn't think the barista was listening to your order, all of a sudden it goes, "Can I have your name?" Because they just want to speed up your service, but you weren't ready to say your name.
Yeah, and that's And that's another thing I would avoid. I wouldn't go to Starbucks or Chick-fil-A, or back in the day, because they would always ask for your name. And
Yeah.
I always stuttered on my name. And now
Yeah.
everywhere does it, but I would always avoid going there.
Yeah, we can have specific, like I'm more successful at Wendy's than Chick-fil-A. So this is
Mhm.
where you have like specific phobias, word sound phobias. Um, do you want to share your metaphor for the 50 miler? Because you said you learned
Yeah.
something about yourself and stuttering through your run.
Yeah. So going back to the 50 miler, I said it was just like, to me, it was much more than a run, because I truly believe that if someone else has done something, then I can do it, or you can do it, or anybody can. And that relates to overcoming stuttering, running a 50 miler, or just starting a business, whatever it may be. And for that race, to me, it was confirmation. And I called it my
Wow.
confirmation day. And so I had, from the day I signed up to the day I ran the race, it was 36 days of training.
Oh,
And the furthest I had ran ever in my life was 15 miles. So on paper, like, I shouldn't have been able to finish that race 15 to 50 within 36 days.
and not on flat pavement.
Oh no, it was all through canyons. I mean, I think it was 7,900 feet of elevation change. And at some points you're on all fours. Like, it was a tough race. And
Wow.
at mile 20, I remember at the race, I had my hands on my knees, and I was exhausted. My body was in excruciating pain. I was dehydrated, and I was like, I can't go any further. And I was like, I can't do this. But if I would have listened to my body, I wouldn't have made it. Like, there's no shot. But it
Wow.
was just a mindset shift. And I accepted the pain. I was like, yeah, you just ran 20 miles. It's the furthest you ever ran. I accepted it. I was like, yeah, you should be dehydrated. I
Mhm.
accepted that. And then all of a sudden, I wasn't tired. I didn't feel thirsty.
That's
And
wild.
I just ran.
That's
And
wild.
I say that because, like, it was just all the mindset. And from that 20 miles, I still have 30 miles left, which is 7 hours. And
Wow. You can
so
quit or do 7 more hours.
yes. And well, and it went from
Mhm.
okay, I'm gonna run 7 hours to, let's tone it down. Let's just run to the next tree, or the cactus, because it was in Arizona.
Oh, trick in your mind.
So I'd run to the cactus. And then once that didn't work, I was broken down even more. I'd be like, just one more step, just one more step. And I was, to be truthful, I was yelling it out loud. There's nobody around. I was in the desert. I was like, just one more, just one more. And then I broke it down even more. I was like, forward is a pace, forward is a motion. Just do not stop.
Wow.
And I say that because 7 hours later, I crossed the finish line. And the moral of the story is that there's nothing in this world that your mind cannot overcome.
Hmm.
And all it takes is just patience and persistence. And then, so if you have a stutter, it's not, you aren't born that way. It's not in doomsday. It's just, work through it and just never quit. Just be persistent, and just change your mindset around it.
Yeah. So we can be born predisposed to stuttering, like it runs on my dad's side of the family. So there's genetics cooked in there. I think one of the key things you're saying here is that if you set your mind to it, you can have a breakthrough. And
Yeah.
I have had the joy of helping first responders, firefighters wanting to be a fighter and interview in front of 6 firefighters to get the job, people going into nursing school, medical school, law school, pilots, military academies, where they have a really high expectation for what they want to do with their speech. And I think it's important for speech pathologists meet the person where they are. If they say, I am going to be starting medical school and I am terrified of stuttering. And I just helped somebody last fall at Emory. They have an actor, a fake patient sitting in the bed, and you have to go up and interview. You have to read their medical history and interview them. Well, As you're being interviewed, your peers also in medical school are watching, and your professor's grading you, and they're videoing it.
Oh no.
If you're a person who stutters and you just moved to Atlanta for medical school and you're going to be in that fishbowl,
Mhm.
you're freaking out. Maybe this person was. And I'm going to meet that person where they are. And there's an expression, the map is not the territory. I'm not going to put my map on their territory. And some people might address that medical student and say, just accept you stutter and stutter through the phenomenon like there's nothing else than that. But if this person wants to rapidly work on changing their thoughts that are bringing to me their office, their fear and anxiety, and then work on some mechanics of speech, if that is their personal mission statement, I'm going to work my best to do that. And I know you have very high expectations, which are great. Um, you're developing a completely new purpose. Instead of trying not to stutter, you're trying to break through any wall, whether it's calling and saying your name, speaking in a job meeting that's or a disagreement. If your company's behind their deadline and someone's getting nasty on the phone, you know?
Well, that's another thing too that like, I mean, I don't think that, or I mean, maybe so, but it may never be perfect if you have a stutter. Like you may never
Yeah,
be completely fluent, and that's how I used to think. And now it's just all change of perspective. I mean,
yeah,
now if I can break down a long stutter, I get super excited. And I'm like, oh yeah, that
yeah.
was a great phone call. And I don't know. I mean, it takes the weight off of you
And
just
that is
by
okay.
not
I
thinking.
I could not say my last name on the telephone for a decade. I would get I had my blocks were silent and people would hang up on me.
Mm,
Still, I mean, I've been speaking pretty much at the capacity that I do for 20, 25 years. Every week that my last name comes out on the telephone, I kind of grin because it was such a hot mess. Um, and you can look at stuttering like a chess match, right? Um, I have to go to the courtroom and be deposed because one of my clients was in a head injury in a car accident, and there's a lawsuit because at age 45 with no history of stuttering, she's now stuttering and can't hold employment, da da da. So I'm going to be deposed. The attorney, both attorneys, both counsel, a court reporter, it's all on video, everything. That's like a chess match where I've got to put together thinking, feeling, and talking, and I enjoy playing that chess match. So we're very, very much alike with that. Um,
and that's, I guess, just to piggyback off that, that's
yeah,
with me. It's like to you, it's the chess match, and to me, I'm a huge goal setter.
yeah,
So for me, it's just like every day, it's just a small little
yeah,
goal. Like, okay, make this phone or go up to the store and say JD Concrete, and use your
yeah.
gliding method. And that's just a small win for me, and that makes it kind of fun in a way.
That's
Instead,
how I was. That's how I was at about your age. That's exactly how I was. I had the audacity to work at the front desk of a major hotel, pre-internet, checking in, checking out people, and getting the phone in front of strangers, and full immersion into talking. Um, Mallory, is there anything else you want to add to just watching Michael changing?
Just that I'm super proud of him.
Mm,
I kind of told him earlier, Michael, he's a big goal setter, and he
mhm.
just posted on his Instagram. He shared, with his friends and family that follow him, that he does stutter.
Yeah,
And he got a lot of response back that, oh, no way, man. Like, no, you don't. No
mhm.
one knew because he'd kept that part of his life so private.
Yeah,
Um, he's really big into the physical things, and he's a healthy guy. He works out all the time. He does things like run 50 miles for fun, which I would never never do. I mean, he did it because it was a goal. So I feel like he's just gotten his control back. Like he was so focused on the physical things in his life, like wanting his body to be in the best shape because he felt like he had control over that.
Interesting.
Yeah, and he didn't feel like he had control over his stutter, but now that he's learned some things and techniques to help with that, he's feeling like he's getting that back. So I feel like he's getting another little piece of himself. And it's been fun to watch him, especially when we go out now and he says, "Don't worry, like I'll whatever, if I stutter, I'll just whatever. I don't have to be there right by by him."
Yeah,
now.
you recently had a moment when you were going out to eat to order, and he said he almost asked you, and then he went, "No, I got this." That was a really important moment for the two of you. So somebody who is listening might be going, "Okay, so they're a month in. It's not so. Obviously, there's still work to do." Michael wanted to do a podcast, and part of it was this thing called disclosure. So here he is just 4 weeks in, and he is posting stuff on Instagram about stuttering, doing little videos and stuff. It's a catharsis for Michael. Get it out, get it out. I can't believe I had so much energy attached to it. So disclosure, it's interesting, that whole list of things that we were doing trying not to stutter, disclosure is the opposite, right? So
Amazing.
that's really why we're here today.
And that's one of the biggest tips I have for anybody that does stutters. Just if you don't want to tell the world, just tell your best friend, and tell someone really close to you. And whenever you tell them, I promise their reaction will not be what you expect. It'll be 10 times better, and you will feel 10 times better, and it's a lot more light on your feet.
That is an awesome, awesome tip for anybody. Stuttering is not what we put so much meaning on it, like stigma, and we'll find out that our world around us who supports us, they just don't see us that way. So future directions for Michael, who's in investing too.
Yes. Just really my future consists of just continuing to work on my speech, slow down, and get more into sales, because that's been a dream of mine, and I've held off on it because I did stutter, and in my mind I thought, how can I do sales if I can't even speak? But now it's more of a game, and that's the direction I want to head.
Well, this is great. Again, one of the biggest themes is here's somebody who's just ready, just opened up, telling the world he stutters, and having fun with the process, and putting all the tools together. So I'm convinced you're going to do great. And Mallory, do you agree with me?
Yes, I totally agree.
He's gonna be a phenom. Yeah. So next March, I'm gonna run that 50 miler in the desert.
Hey, I'll do it with you.
I'll go support. I'll support you guys.
So you'll be 12 hours. I'll be 12 days. Thank you for your time this evening.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. It was an honor.
Thanks.
Bye.